I wasn't even in Lisbon when I found my apartment. I just followed a feeling, and somehow it worked. The process of moving anywhere has its ups and downs, but when you're doing it alone, needing a visa, mountains of paperwork, and without a job moving you there or a partner to vouch for you, those downs can feel extra real. My move to Lisbon was no different. So today, I want to share a quick story time about the documents I needed, the miracle that made it all possible, and what the whole experience taught me about life and alignment.
I am now currently craving my favorite Middle Eastern food from my favorite Middle Eastern restaurant in Lisbon. So I'm heading there, waiting for the train now. But I will, and so I'll do this on the go essentially. I'll do this details of how I moved to Lisbon on the go. Here I am. It is called Zaytuna. It's a little turned around, but I'll show you the menu. But yeah, it's like a very simple, I think it's a family run place. Kind of acts like a grocery. I don't know if you can see the inside. Yeah, it has a little grocery aspect as well as a little lunch slash dinner, but really like small, simple things. There's a place that's like right next door that's called Meze. I'll put the text on the screen. It's lactose intolerant.
Okay. To drink, you want anything?
Just water is fine.
Okay. It's done?
Sim, tudo. Obrigada.
Nada, you're welcome.
Yeah, sorry, I got interrupted to order because we need to leave this table in about an hour. But yes, there's another place next door called Meze. I'll put the text up here. That is also really good, but that's more like a restaurant, like a sit down dinner. I don't even think they're open for lunch, but it's more like a sit down dinner sort of place. And this place is like a pretty much grab and go, simple, obrigada, grab and go sort of place. Okay, so let's get into the visa stuff before the food arrives. Okay, so I was living in Dakar, enjoying it, but not really seeing myself there long term for multiple reasons. I think I have a video on why I left Dakar, so you can check that out. Really, really enjoyed it. Still really love Dakar and Senegal as a whole, but long term, I didn't see myself there and was open to going elsewhere. But as someone with a Ghanaian passport, going elsewhere is usually not very straightforward. And so I had made no plans really. And Portugal came to me in two forms from two people. One was my really good friend who had read an article about the D7 visa, which is the visa through which I moved here. I will maybe put some links up. Of course, I've been here now over 2 years, and so a lot of these visas and immigration routes have completely changed. Some of them don't exist anymore. So I heard about this first through a really good friend because she knew that I was open to exploring other places, and I was quite hesitant when she first sent it to me because it just sounded to me like another one of these Western country visas. But if you read the fine print, they only want other Westerners and not people from the global South, if we're being for real. So I didn't really look into it. I just read the article and I put it aside. And then again, it came to me through another person who I think it was my partner at the time, also saw an article or something and sent it to me. And then I decided, okay, this thing has come to me through two different people. Let me look into it more seriously. So that's how it all began. Sorry, this is a bit of an awkward angle, but I got tired of holding my phone up. So, yes, I did some research and found a Portuguese lawyer and explained my situation to her, the passport I hold, whether this D7 visa was a real possibility for someone like me. And she said yes. And I told my mom, and my mom was like, I should apply immediately. And so I did. Essentially, the D7 visa, which I'm not sure it still exists, but at the time it was two-way. There was an option of people that are retired or semi-retired and make money off of assets elsewhere outside of Portugal, and so don't really need a job in Portugal to exist. And then they added the option for people that work remotely and so have work or are making money from outside of Portugal essentially and don't really need Portugal to exist. So that's essentially what the visa was about. You had to show a certain amount of, so you had to show proof of this income. In my case, income for the people who are retired, assets that generate some kind of income. You had to have about 10,000, oops, sorry, 10,000, approximately 10,000 euros in savings. You had to have an apartment lease, and so an apartment in Portugal. No criminal report, and so you had to get a police report from where you were living. I think that was about it. And then you had to open a bank in Portugal. Opening the bank was not too difficult. You also had to get a Portuguese finance number. So the bank and the Portuguese finance number was pretty straightforward. The apartment was definitely the hardest part of it. So before I get into that, I will list the things that I needed to apply, maybe somewhere on the screen, so that you can look at the list and then follow as I keep going. So yes, so the NIF, which is the Portuguese tax number, the bank, that part was pretty straightforward. In my case, I already had a remote job. If you didn't have it, you would not be looking, or if you weren't retired, you would not be looking at this visa in the first place. And so most people could take that part off. I've never committed a crime in my life, so that part was also pretty straightforward. Or at least so I thought, actually. The most difficult part was finding the apartment lease, because I was at this time in Senegal, but had to somehow find an apartment lease in Portugal, which most landlords are hesitant to give you an apartment lease if you're not physically in the country. So if you reach out to them and they say, okay, come and look at the apartment tomorrow, and you can't come because you're not physically there, that's a bit of a turnoff. And so that's what I found. I was looking for apartments. I was messaging people, and many of them actually would get back to me. But when we got to the point of potentially signing a lease or coming to see the apartment, they would be like, okay, you're not physically here, so I don't know. So that was that. I was looking for months. At the same time, after I submitted my police report, and this I found out much later down the line, but I will talk about this first because the apartment one was a longer story. After I submitted the application, the police report, they got back to me and said the police report was fine, but they saw in my passport that I had lived in the US for a while, but I hadn't been to the US since 2017 at this point. So in years, it was 2022 when I applied. Yeah, 2022. But they wanted me to get a police report from the US. That was kind of complicated. Thankfully, I went to university in the US, and so I was able to email my university to the police department in my university to provide that for me and sorted that out. The apartment, however, required a lot more creativity, and I would say honestly some divine intervention, because I landed upon it quite randomly. Like I said, I was looking for all these apartments, speaking to all these landlords. Nobody was signing a lease with me. I eventually found an agent, a real estate agent, who was on the ground, because I figured that would help. She found an apartment actually, and maybe I made an offer. I got the apartment essentially, and maybe the day before we're supposed to sign the lease, the owner of the apartment messages my agent and says that his family member or family friend is in a situation and needs an apartment desperately. So unfortunately, they've decided to give the apartment to this person and they're not going to rent it out. And so I'm like, shit, back to square one. At this point, we're getting to the end of 2022 and I'm getting a little bit concerned because it's been a couple of months of me gathering all these documents. And one day, I had started doing these meditations, which I will talk about in another video. Started doing these meditations that are sort of a combination of therapy and rewiring your subconscious. And I woke up one day with this idea to message this random girl who had popped up on my Instagram, Dutch girl, who was an influencer living in Lisbon. I don't know this girl. I just followed her because she was sharing, restaurants, tips, and information on Lisbon and living in Lisbon. And so I just started following her. And this girl has over 100,000 followers. And so I think it could be tricky to reach her. I sent her a DM because, again, I had just done this meditation and had this idea to message her. I sent her a DM and I'm like, hi, I know you don't know me, yada, 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 but here's the situation I'm in. I'm trying to move to Portugal, but I need this document. I need a lease and I'm struggling to get one. Do you by any chance know anyone that is in an apartment that might be moving out soon that maybe I can sublease or take over the lease? And no expectation of whether she would get back to me. I go back to, Idealista, which is the website that you can find apartments, keep messaging landlords, etc. I kid you not, within 24 hours, she gets back to me. And again, she doesn't know me from Adam. She gets back to me and she says, my friend might be leaving her apartment. Here's my friend's telephone number. Message her and tell her that I told you to reach out and see. Again, I was very surprised that she even gave me her friend's number, all of these things. But I guess, a woman messaging a woman is not so creepy. So perhaps she felt like, what's the worst that could happen? So I message her friend on WhatsApp and explain my situation, say I'm looking for an apartment. The friend says she is in an apartment and she is trying to leave, but she has had so much difficulty finding another apartment. And so she's not sure. If she doesn't find something by, in the next couple of weeks, she will probably just stay and renew her lease. And I was like, okay, just keep me posted. Within a week, she finds a new apartment that she likes, messages me and tells me that, okay, I'm leaving this apartment. I will tell the landlord that you are my friend and you want to take over the lease so that you're guaranteed to get it. Again, these two girls do not know me. They have never seen me in their lives. All they have is my Instagram page, essentially, and now my WhatsApp number. So that's what happened. She connected me to the landlord. We did a video call. The landlord was okay with it, and I took over the lease. Wild. But absolutely would not have even been able to apply for the visa without the lease because it was a requirement. They would not take your documents if you didn't have it. And so shout out to Sophia and Laura, because these are the girls that made all of this possible without knowing me and just sort of trusted my word, but also were good people and not trying to, scam me or anything of the sort. So yeah, that's how I ended up applying to that. And I ended up getting the lease. And then I guess a few weeks after I sorted all of that out, I put my application in. At this point, we're nearing the end of 2022, but I put my application in and it's a waiting game. I think I waited I'll double check, but I think I waited a good 6 to 8 months. For context, Obrigada. My food is here, so I'm actually going to eat so that it doesn't get cold, and also because I need to leave this table in about 40 minutes, and I will come back and continue the story. Forgot to show him, like I said, very simple sandwich. Really, really good. Oh, that was so good. I'm so glad I made it out here because I initially ordered for delivery and it was an unmitigated disaster. The delivery guy didn't pick it up. I was calling the restaurant. They're like, we're done, but the delivery guy is not here. So I ended up canceling. And I'm glad I came myself. The guy was super nice. They were fully booked. But he was like, okay, I'll put you on a table, but you have to eat quickly because this table is for somebody else. Just very nice of him. Very, very glad that I made it out here myself, even though it's a bit of a trek from my part of town. I will jump back into the story in a couple minutes when I am seated. I'm from Ghana, for those of you who don't know. And Ghana doesn't have a Portuguese embassy. And so I had to send my stuff to Nigeria, to Lagos. And so in this waiting period of 8 months or so, I really couldn't do anything. It's not as if the embassy was in my country and I could just physically go there and ask them what's going on. And more meditations, which, like I said, I may do a video about that whole process separately. And then I sort of let go of it and accepted that if it happened, it happened. If not, I wasn't meant to live here. And then my visa/passport finally arrived, and I moved here June 2023. Yes, June 2023. And honestly, it's been so wonderful. It's been 2.5 years and I still have this feeling of, I can't believe I get to live here. So grateful. But I will share a few pages/resources on the screen for anyone who is maybe looking to move. Because like I said, a lot of the immigration rules have changed drastically over the years, and so I'll share some pages that might be helpful to follow if you're someone that's looking to move here. These are pages that will give you updates on what's happening right now or whenever it is you're applying. But I think I'll wrap it up here so it's not too long a video. I'm just gonna take a walk in the park. But if you have any questions about my move here/living here, what it's like, etc., I am happy to make more videos about that. So just let me know in the comments. I hope this was, if not helpful, at least inspiring for anyone who wants to move. But for anyone who wants to move, if not here, somewhere else, just a note that it's possible.